So-called ultra-processed foods aren't really real food, but they really can affect our health. Why do we need a new term, though? Can't we just say we should stay away from junk food, defined as food and beverages with high levels of concentrated calories and added saturated fats, sodium, and sugar? I mean, that's where most of our sugar and about half of our calories, salt, and saturated fat comes from, but ultra-processed is not synonymous with junk. There are some junk foods that are not ultra-processed, and some ultra-processed foods that don't fit the definition of junk. For example, while a sausage is considered an ultra-processed meat, bacon is considered just a processed meat, though bacon would also meet junk food's definition of a calorie-concentrated food loaded with added salt. What about an ultra-processed product like Diet Coke? It doesn't have any calories, no sugar, no fat, not junk food, but still ultra-processed and not necessarily good for you. So there's a limitation to exclusively focusing on the nutrient profile of ultra-processed foods, but how can they be bad if they're fat-free, sugar-free, salt-free? Health risks are not only related to the poor nutritional quality of ultra-processed foods, but also to the presence of additives. No apparent calories, fat, salt, or sugar, but contains caramel color, which results in the formation of 4-methylamidazole, which is a possible human carcinogen. Contains aspartame 2, also recently classified as possibly cancer-causing in humans. And Diet Coke contains phosphoric acid, which is a phosphate additive that may be damaging to health. In fact, that's just the kind of additive that could help explain the link between ultra-processed foods and heart and kidney problems. Contains a benzoate preservative, too. If you remove artificial colorings and benzoate preservatives from the diets of preschoolers and then randomize the kids to be slipped a placebo or a cocktail of colorings and benzoate, you'll see a significant reduction in hyperactive behavior during the withdrawal phase, and a significant increase in hyperactive behavior when the kids got the colorings and benzoate compared to placebo. Of course, it could have been the colors, not the benzoate, but that's one of the problems. As little as we know about the effects of these individual additives, we know even less about what combinations of them can do. There's a large body of evidence suggesting toxicity from certain artificial food colors, benzoate preservatives, artificial sweeteners, and emulsifiers, in part sometimes through our gut microbiome. This may explain at least part of the connection between inflammatory bowel disease and ultra-processed foods. Now, industry apologists argue that the U.S. Food and Drug Administration carefully evaluates food additives to make sure they're safe, until they're not. In fact, to show the system works, they cite the removal of 6 carcinogenic artificial flavors in 2018. Artificial flavors that had been in the food supply approved for safety since 1964, so we were exposed more than 50 years before they were banned. Critics of the ultra-processed food concept puzzle at the fact that natural yogurt is considered minimally processed, and yogurt with added sugar is considered a processed food, but if the yogurt's sweetened with artificial sweetener and contains less sugar, it's considered ultra-processed. You can see how the critics try to stick with the nutrient paradigm of, hey, less sugar should be better. But that was before aspartame, sold as Nutrici, was officially recognized as a potential human carcinogen in 2023. 42 years earlier, when aspartame was first approved, the FDA's own public board of inquiry opposed approval of the artificial sweetener based on brain tumors in rats in the industry's own studies. This included several FDA scientists who didn't think it was safe. The FDA commissioner rejected these concerns and approved it anyway, before leaving the agency to enjoy a $1,000 per day consultancy position with the aspartame company's PR firm. And then the FDA actually prevented the National Toxicology Program from doing further cancer testing. Meanwhile, literally tens of millions of pounds made it into the food supply. Fine, critics of the ultra-processed label say, if there are some additives that are bad, let's find out exactly which ones they are and get rid of those. No need to guilty until proven innocent broad brush all additives as potentially harmful. Take artificial food colors, though. What level of evidence do we need to remove something whose sole reason of existence is to make some day-glow marshmallows and a kid's cereal that much more eye-catching? I've long been concerned about red dye number 3, why it hasn't been banned from food, for example, given the dye was banned more than 30 years ago from inclusion in anything going on our skin due to cancer risk, but it's okay to eat? Finally, just recently, the California Food Safety Act was signed, banning red dye number 3 from foods and drinks sold in California as of 2027. Consumer groups like Center for Science and the Public Interest continue to petition the FDA for a national ban to prohibit use of this carcinogen, and in 2025, the FDA finally agreed to ban it from food, 35 years after they removed it from cosmetics. It also starts to take effect in 2027. Until then, here's a pro-tip suggestion for food companies. Should you want to make your cherry popsicles red, maybe try adding some cherries. If the harm of ultra-processed foods lies in potential harmful additives, why not just stick to so-called clean label foods, made with simple and recognizable ingredients, no matter how the food is processed? But that's assuming additives are the only reason ultra-processed foods may be unhealthy. In fact, harmful additives are just one of many reasons ultra-processed foods may lead to increased risk of death and disease. I'll address some of these others next.